Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the kickoff event for the sixth Unbound Book Festival. My name is Alex George, and I'm the founder and the director of the festival. I'm sitting here all alone after hours in Skylark Bookshop, which I will admit is not quite the same as being with you all on the beautiful campus of Stevens College, or indeed in the Missouri Theatre. But at least we are here. I won't pretend that it has been easy to pick ourselves off the floor when we had to cancel last year's festival at the 11th hour, but this virus has taught us all a great deal. We've learned to be resilient, and we've learned to innovate, and perhaps most importantly, we've learned to be grateful for what we have. And we have a lot. I'm very grateful to Unbound's wonderful board, who have been incredible cheerleaders for the festival throughout the community, and they've provided sterling guidance and support in these most difficult of times. In addition to the board, the festival is actually run by a small army of committees, from outreach to merch to volunteer to programming. Every person on those committees has given ceaselessly and generously of their time, and I'm so grateful to them all. Unbound really is a labor of love for everyone involved, and it wouldn't be the festival it is without each and every one of them. As you may know, the festival is free to attend, and without the revenue from ticket sales, we couldn't put the event on without the incredible support that we have received year in and year out from members of our community and beyond. Thanks to absolutely everyone who has donated to Unbound since we began. We have been a little busy with tech issues getting ready for tonight, but we will be posting a list of the last 2 years of donors on the website very soon. What there is on the website, that's unboundbookfestival.com, is a very large donate button. And if you feel so minded after tonight's event, please do consider making a contribution to our nonprofit organization. Big or small, it all helps. Support comes too from the City of Columbia, specifically the Office of Cultural Affairs and the Convention and Visitors Bureau. KBIA are our media sponsors. And even though we won't be going there in person this year, Stevens College remains our spiritual home and the place where so many wonderful Unbound memories have already been forged. We miss the beautiful campus, and we look forward to returning in April of 2022. This evening event is sponsored by Skylark Bookshop. Copies of books by all of the festival's authors are available for sale in the shop and on the website, which is skylarkbookshop.com. And finally, I'm grateful to you. Yes, you out there in the world, wherever you are. Staring into this little camera is not the same as staring blindly into the lights of the Missouri Theatre. I can tell you that much. But thank you so much for tuning in, if that's the right expression, and spending time with us tonight. Unbound has always had a strong tradition of audience participation, and just because we're not in the same room doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue with that. Please feel free to post questions for the panelists in the comment box, and we will get to them towards the end of the session. If you haven't already had the opportunity, please do take a moment to review the whole schedule, all 3 months of it, and plan to attend as many events as you can. We would love to see you. The decision to put the whole festival online this year has changed everything, and also nothing. I know that this year's authors and poets are stunningly talented, and that you will be inspired and delighted by them as always. But look, I'm here and you are there. Tonight's guests are dotted from one coast to the other and all points in between. It would be strange to pretend that this is anything close to normal. This pandemic has radically altered how we think about even the most basic and fundamental things. And so it seemed appropriate to begin this year's virtual festival with an event that addresses these issues head on. Some of you may remember Jennifer Haupt from the third Unbound Book Festival when she came to Columbia to discuss her gorgeous novel, In the Shadow of 10,000 Hills. I'm thrilled to welcome her back to Unbound, this time in her capacity as the editor of Alone Together, an anthology of prose and verse by writers who are confronting the challenges of COVID-19. Jen, welcome back to Unbound.
Hi, Alex. First of all, thank you so much for putting on this festival online this year and for inviting me and the other authors to kick off the events. It's really an honor.
Of course. Well, I'm so thrilled that you were able to do it. And, you know, when the programming committee were thinking about how we would begin, in a virtual world, this just seemed like such a perfect thing. So I'm so thrilled that you're able to do it. So I'm going to take off, let you introduce our wonderful writers, and I'll swing back at the end to wrap everything up.
Okay, see you later.
Bye.
Hi, I also want to thank everyone in the audience for showing up tonight and supporting us. I know everyone's got a lot going on in their lives, and we really appreciate your support. So I just have to hold up the book quick. I know Alex already did, but this is my baby. I call her my lovely monster, because when I started out, I really didn't know what I was doing, what I was trying to put together. All I knew was it was March. There was a stay-at-home order in Seattle, where I live, and the virus was definitely not going away. So I reached out to friends of mine at first, and then friends of theirs and people I admired, and asked for essays and poems for this anthology to support BINC, which is the book industry. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Charitable Foundation. And they support the independent bookstores across the country. Independent bookstores have always supported authors, supported readers. They've really been, I think, pillars of our democracy. And so as the pandemic continued and as events continued in our country and started roiling, it, I think, became more and more clear and more important to support independent bookstores. They've always been someplace that you can go and hear authors you can't hear anyplace else. You can go and have discussions you maybe can't have anyplace else with people you may not have met anywhere else. And so I'm really pleased to be able to support BINC and support independent bookstore sellers, as I know all the authors involved in this book are. I want to just quickly introduce our panel, which is Jennifer Rosner, Caroline Levitt, Reuben Quesada, and Sadia Hassan. And first of all, hi, and thank you for joining me tonight. And I just we're going to go through one by one and read the essays and poems from the book that these wonderful authors have contributed, and talk to them more, and then come back and have more of a general discussion about creativity and get your feedback, questions from the audience. And so without further ado, let's start with Jennifer Rosner, who I have not seen for years. We went to Tin House together and we workshop together, and it's really, really nice to see you, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us. Jennifer Rosner is the author of The Yellow Bird Sings, fabulous book, which the New York Times called exquisite, heartrending, and absolutely beautiful and necessary novel. I quite agree. Her previously published books include the memoir, If a Tree Falls, A Family's Quest to Hear and Be Heard, and the picture book, The Mitten String, a Sidney Taylor Book Award notable. Her short writings have appeared in the New York Times, the Massachusetts Review, The Forward, and elsewhere. In addition to writing, Jennifer teaches philosophy, which, if you read her books, it's easy to see that. She received her BA from Columbia University and her PhD from Stanford University. She lives in Western Massachusetts with her family. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Jennifer's going to read her essay, which I'm just going to give the page numbers in the book in case people at home already have the book and want to read along. So it's on page 192, Recipe for Connection.
Thank you so much. I'm really thrilled to be here. I'll read first, but for those who are reading along, I've crossed out a sentence or two here and there. It just seems better for a read aloud. My mother, a flitting hummingbird, calms once her saute pans are simmering on the stove. 5 feet tall, 90 pounds, she moves about her kitchen with an assuredness she doesn't have in other domains. Her world started shrinking before the virus hit. At age 89, she lost her husband of 63 years, my beloved father. She refrained from most driving and retreated from friends. Thankfully, she didn't live alone. My sister and nephew shared the Connecticut split level, though their lives were busy. Most days, my mother's focus was on cooking the evening's dinner: salmon with tomatoes, capers, and olives, tagliatelle with zucchini and lemon. She took pride in her culinary works. When the virus began ravaging New York City, my brother and his family fled to my mother's house. With them came boxes of cleaning supplies, canned foods, and crackers, and intense anxiety. They were particularly concerned with how my mother washed her hands, not often enough, not with the proper soap, not for 20 seconds. They fervently objected whenever she prepared food. Though she stayed home and was the most vulnerable of the bunch, they skipped her elaborate dinners and prepared their own food. In phone calls, my sister reported my mother's further retreat. She was spending most of her time in her bedroom, far from the kitchen. Meanwhile, in my house, several hours away, I was quarantined with my husband and 2 children. There was a lot of food prep. One afternoon, I called my mother to ask her advice about a recipe. Should I use sun-dried or fresh tomatoes for a Mediterranean chicken dish? My mother perked up and gave me several tips. Add paprika to the dredging flour. Use ghee in addition to olive oil. She called me the following day to ask how the dish turned out and what I was making that night. Honestly, I was flailing. My eldest daughter had celiac and a long list of food allergies, and our now limited supermarket trips made meal preparation even more challenging. My mother brainstormed options with me. What about fish with roasted tomatoes and potatoes? Steak marinated in a raspberry vinaigrette? Food wasn't always simple between us. As a semi-recovered anorexic, my mother kept an eagle eye on what I ate when I was a child. She made cooking an event back then too, yet she barely ate anything. My eating stressed her out. The intervening years have softened her, and my daughter's growth issues refocused my thoughts on food intake for optimal nourishment rather than weight. My mother's specially prepared foods, raspberry popovers, crunchy maple sweet potatoes, caramelized pear pie, managed to bring me comfort and trigger only the mildest hints of past craziness. My kids love these same foods with particular adaptations. Now, while sheltering in place, my mother and I have a daily cooking call. She advises me on what I aim to make for dinner, offering ideas I'd never think of. Last night, with her encouragement, I pulled off a pasta with roasted cauliflower and hazelnuts. Who knew that adding a bit of pasta water could help thicken a sauce? I can't wait to tell her how tasty it was and to hear her pleasure in it. We're eating better than we ever would have, and I believe my mother is less lonely as a result of our calls. When we hang up, I picture her rifling through the pages of well-worn cookbooks, considering what to suggest to me for tomorrow's family dinner. My sister reports that our mother has reasserted herself in her kitchen. After she speaks to me, she sets her pans on the stove and conjures what she can from her pantry. Though my brother and his family continue to eat their food at different shifts, my sister and nephew gladly eat whatever she cooks. I have not set eyes on my mother for 8 weeks. She will turn 90 this July, and I hope that by then we'll be able to safely visit in person. For now, we're in touch by phone. Me standing at my kitchen counter, she fluttering around hers, both looking forward to a day when we'll cook an elaborate meal and eat it together.
That's lovely. First of all, I'm like salivating. I'm so hungry now. And you know, it really struck me how when you said it's been 8 weeks since I've seen my mother, and we're hoping to see each other this summer. And you know, when you read something like that you wrote at the beginning of the pandemic, it's just crazy to think that now it's been. Have you seen your mom at all?
I mean, I drive. It takes, you know, a couple hours to get there. I stand, you know, 10 feet from her. She's 90. And in my mask, she can't really face read and she doesn't hear well. So we kind of just look at each other and then I drive back. And it's been really hard and sad. And today I FaceTimed her before this. Yeah, it's just been so long.
Well, I'm
been
really
so
impressed she does FaceTime. That's
I
pretty
know.
cool for a 90-year-old.
Well, usually she can see my face and I'm looking at whatever light fixture she has. It's hard for her to somehow get herself in the photograph there. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Jennifer. And we'll come back and talk some more later. For now, we're going to move on to Sadia Hassan and her poetry, her gorgeous poetry. Hi, Sadia. It's nice to see you.
Thank you. It's nice to see all of you.
I really love your lights in the background. Those are really pretty. Yeah, I have to work on my Zoom feng shui. I'm not quite. I don't quite have it together, but I like the light idea. I might steal that from you. So Sadia's poem, Suburban Nocturne, can be found on page 148 for those of you reading along. And then you're also going to read a work in progress, right?
I am. I have a poem about Mississippi that I want to read.
Nice. Okay, great.
Suburban Nocturne. Behind those trees, more trees which hide apartments, whose windows I surveil from my own. A neighbor, slick with sweat, pulls dumbbells past his bulging shoulders. Below him, an American flag slap boxes the air. Petunias shiver over the railing. How to protect one's heart from bruising under what is not afraid to startle, what sees without sensing. 4 stories above the boxwood and cypress bushes, the long shadow. A woman pacing under a flickering porch light. The muffled cry of the Cameroonian mistress on her miserable night walks. Is it French or patois? Did she leave him? Well, no. But who does not covet a woman who will not leave? Instead, she turns the shadowed staircase, flies up to her room. From my own, I slip into a life of looped dreams, filled with nothing but this hunger. In my dreams, I smell her off a lover, taste the sea in his ghost grip. All night the sky, our sheets, its Cimmerian crease, stink of capsized boats. Behind the night, more night. In the velvet stretch of dawn, I wake non-compost mentis, his mouth a blue spell which stuns me. Behind those trees, a field of the living, native plants flowering in Virginia's heat, summer sweet, switchgrass, black-eyed Susan.
That is so lovely.
Thank you.
I just love the imagery in that because we've had to like look out our windows and see the world in different ways, and I'm wondering, was this poem inspired by things that you actually saw out your windows, or tell me a little about that?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the pandemic, I was in Mississippi. I was away from family. And as soon as I heard there was going to be a lockdown, I flew to Virginia to stay with my brother. And he lives in this, this beautiful apartment that overlooks like a bird sanctuary situation with like lots of trees. And it was the first time I think that I had been kind of in the thick of, there's a pond out back and trees, but I felt like I was kind of in the middle of something. And so, yeah, in the evenings when I would like have my tea, I would sit there and just watch and kind of learn all of these trees that were native to all these plants that were native to Virginia. And so that's how I spent my time looking at neighbors over the porch and learning about trees. Yeah.
That's really cool. It reminds me of my neighbor was telling me how he was looking through his window and he was watching his neighbor on the other side of us watching porn. And he's like, this guy has no idea I can see him, and what he's doing. And it's just, anyways. So let's hear the poem you have in progress. I'm really excited to hear this. Oops, it looks like you are muted.
Okay, I'm unmuted again. Okay. In Google, it's called in Oxford, I Google the floodplains. In Oxford, I Googled floodplains of Alabama. In Forest, this time 2019, flooding so bad on Front Street, a truck overturned. I assigned the news as classwork. Student A, the news reports the road is passable. Student B, by passable, they mean barely. More rain expected to ruin Black suburbs. My students yawn. Most live in Clinton, Madison, Brandon. During break, I call my father in Georgia, searching for answers in the tremor of shared laughter. I dig through root rot to find the afternoon we spent watching our neighbor aggressively water his patch of grass, a fistful of lily of the valley nearly drowning under a blessed stream. In the hollow of a minute, a catastrophe can come to pass, or its echo can split the air like water around a boulder. Quick, I ask my students, how many minutes does it take to flood a mile? My students laugh, busying themselves with Quizlet. Class dismissed. We close our windows to the crescendo of rain, clap of thunder never follows. Oh, Jackson, my Jackson, I Google the places my loved ones have loved ones, imagining the sycamore trees dipping more than just their toes in the water, now their knees pearled, now the scar above the napes of their necks unfurled, leaves twisting in the wind, Tuscaloosa, just an hour, and the bridges full to bursting. Thank you.
That's beautiful. Those sycamore trees, I'm just like picturing them, you know. I love your imagery of nature. It's really, really beautiful. We'll come back and talk with you a little bit later. And now we're going to move on to Caroline Levitt. Hello, Caroline. Nice to see you.
Muted. Okay, nice to see you too, Jennifer.
Caroline Levitt is the New York Times bestselling author of 12 novels, including Pictures of You, Is This Tomorrow, Cruel Beautiful World, and With or Without You, which was a Good Morning America online book pick. A book critic for People and AARP, Caroline teaches novel writing online at Stanford and UCLA and for private clients. A New York Foundation of the Arts Fellow in Fiction. She was also a finalist in the Sundance Screenwriting Lab in pilot and feature film. Her work has appeared in the Daily Beast, New York Magazine, the New York Times Book Review, and more. And she has a wonderful Psychology Today blog called Runs in the Family, which I love and look forward to reading your posts. And so, speaking of family, Caroline's piece for this book is about family, and this is one of the first pieces that I started the book with. So I always feel like it's at the kind of the heart and soul of this lovely monster. It's on page 86 for those who want to follow along. Sibling estrangement and social distancing.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and thank you, Alex, and thank you, everybody, for being here. Sibling estrangement and social distancing. The words in the email punch my heart. You're dead to me, my sister says. I despise you. I hope you feel the pain that you keep causing me. I do feel the pain. Her message has made me nearly hysterical because I don't understand how and why my sister could write something like that to me. Plus, it's been a full month of corona and the virus is raging on, and every connection that anybody has matters more now, or at least it's supposed to. It wasn't always like this with us. Oh no, we were close growing up. We were each other's best friend. She was beautiful, bright, and exotic, and I, the mostly shy one, used to bask in her light. But she let me, protecting me, encouraging me. We egged each other on, writing books together, wandering to Harvard Square to gawk at cute boys, a shop for clothes we would both wear. We promised each other that we would always live near each other. We would always keep each other's secrets, and when one needed the other, we would always be there. Later, she took me on her dates, sharing all her life with me. We even made up a code word for the one who died first to come back in spirit and whisper that word in the survivor's ear, so we would know we were always and still connected. I can pinpoint when it started between us. I was 17 and she was newly married, overwhelmed with a new baby. I was running wild, the way we used to do together, and she no longer could. She snapped at me or refused to talk to me, and we'd see each other only when we both came home to visit our mom. With my mom as a buffer, we connected again, but those times didn't last. And as the years went on, I saw my sister less and less. She finally told me, blurting it out, that she felt I had stolen her life, that I got the happy marriage, I got the writing career. I imagine that being with me, reminded her of that, and she had to protect herself against me. But we always came back together. We moved my mom into independent living together. We took care of arrangements when my mom died. And I remember telling my sister that though my mom's death at 100 was part of the natural order of things, if it had been my sister, I would have been devastated. I couldn't have recovered from it. Me too, she told me. Except it wasn't true. She didn't want to talk on the phone or visit or have contact. If my present couldn't bring her back to me, I realized that maybe material things could. Because I reviewed books, I had ARCs coming into my home every day. I cherry-picked the best of them, and I sent them to her, but instead of being happy, she was miffed. She said I had sent her books that stunk. How could I think she would like this book or that one? She posted on my social media page about how much she had hated a book. And when I told her not to do that, because I was deeply protective of authors, she accused me of sucking up to people. When I sent her a dress, it came back in the mail with no note. When I sent her a necklace I had specially made for her birthday, it came back tied in knots with a scribbled note. You like this, I don't. And then one day, her daughter, now grown, reached out to me, and we became incredibly close. I helped her daughter with her writing. She helped me with mine. I doted on her young kids. Our two families loved each other. It was something I thought my sister might be happy about. And at first she was, but then that soon changed. Her joy turned to fury against me and also against her daughter. She insisted that I could contact with her daughter and her daughter's family because I was a bad influence. And with me there, what chance did she have? When I told her I couldn't do that, a series of vitriolic emails spilled into my inbox. Look at you, my husband said, your hands are shaking. You can't have contact with her. But now there's COVID-19, and more than ever, I want contact. I'm still sure I can fix whatever's gone wrong with us. Just give me time, I think. But with the pandemic, there really is no time. Contact with my sister is more important to me than ever, except it's not important to her. Why are you doing this? My husband asked me. It's clear she thinks your relationship is over. And even if it wasn't, it's not a healthy one. How can you be family with someone who's furious that you're happy, who wants you to hurt? She's unhappy, I tell him. I hate that she's unhappy. I weep to my therapist on the phone. She closed the door, my therapist calmly tells me. And though she's right, I can't help hoping desperately to pry that door open. With COVID-19, I can't leave my city to travel to hers, to find her and make her see reason. I can't show up with flowers or books and beg her to talk to me, but there are things I can do at a social distance. She won't open any email with my name, so I get crafty. I go to AOL, which I never use, and I make up an account I call Library News with an exclamation point so she'll pay attention to it. Inside, I address her as a library reader that we, the libraries, will be thrilled to welcome her back when we can. But in the meantime, perhaps she'd like to access some books online. Perhaps she'd like to use Unbound link to find and buy her favorite reads at her favorite indie bookstore. Perhaps, always perhaps. I have no idea if she follows through with anything, but it still makes me happy to send the things, to imagine that she does. I want to know she's safe. I want to know that she and her family and her friends who mean something to her don't have the virus. And the truth is, what I really want to know, I want her to know that I'm safe. I want her to still care about me, because for that not to feel true is unbearable, like a kind of death. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts. Give it up, my husband tells me. Not everybody is going to love you. Family is biology, not an imperative. Other women become sisters to me, a woman who totally gets what I'm going through. I make a friend who is so like me, I wonder if I grew up with her instead of my real sibling. Can't my sister love me now that a virus is decimating the planet? So much around me is being lost. People, places, a normal way of life. I can't bring these back, but can I bring back my bond with my sister? To calm myself, I begin to obsessively knit. I make sweaters for myself and then one for my sister's daughter, each stitch full of love. I imagine making one for my sister, soft, deep purple, a color she'd love. But I can't bear to think of her cutting up that sweater and returning it to me. So I go to my heart soften. Sometimes they don't. My sister might always hate me. That's a strange and terrible thing. But I persist. I bait hooks, posting photos of her daughter's kids on social media. Everybody smiling and happy and inviting. I'm desperate for a response from her. I keep tweeting because I know she tracks my social media. I know this because she sometimes lashes out at me when she reads something she doesn't like. My sister is estranged from me. I post. I put up a broken heart emoji for good measure, and I get about 20 responses from people who say, me too, but I get nothing from the one person it's meant for. Sometimes, too, I imagine my sister reading this essay, and her heart is like a fist loosening up, opening to my outstretched hand. I think that we might possibly love each other again, that we might possibly be sisters again. And then I think about me, what it's like not to have the violence, the bitterness, the attacks, the astonishing relief that the broken drama of our relationship is not always playing out. It's then that I feel the distance between us, much like the face mask I now wear, a protection that I might or might not need forever. Thank you.
That essay, I love it. It's so rich with the connections we're all longing for. And, you know, I hesitate to ask if your sisters read the essay or.
You know what? I don't know. The only thing that I've heard from her is I wrote another longer essay in Psychology Today, and she wrote me back just 2 sentences that says, "This is all lies and distortions. I wish you were dead." So I have not heard anything from her, but I still, you know, hope is always eternal, and you never know. I hope she's watching now. I mean, that would be really lovely, but I have no way of knowing.
Well, and the connections, the reaching out is for you too. So
yes,
and so there's always that. But thank you very much, Caroline. And we'll come back to you and have a more of a discussion. But right now, let's move on to Reuben. Hi, Reuben. Thanks for waiting. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too, Jennifer. Thanks for having me.
Well, let me officially introduce you as I grab my intro page here. Reuben Quesada is a Costa Rican American poet who grew up in Los Angeles. He's the author of Revelations, selected translations of Luis Cernuda, and Next Extinct Mammal. His writing has appeared in the Best American Poetry, Harvard Review, American Poetry Review, and other anthologies and journals. He's the founder of Latinx Writers Caucus, poetry editor at Agni Magazine, and a blogger at the Kenyon Review. Reuben currently lives in Chicago. And Reuben's incredible poem, Billow of Thistles, is on page 74. And he's going to read this, and then another piece as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Alex, and everyone that's here with us tonight. This is Billow of Thistles. I have only ever left this planet once, in a billow of thistles, after snorting methamphetamine in an abandoned record store in Hollywood, birds settling into the windowsills. A man whom I was engaged to left me to take communion with the Jesuit order in Ireland. From Christ's dress, a thread spun itself into the body of Adam at his feet. From out of his palm, the translucent figure of Eve. I never heard from him again. The salmon-colored sky eagerly held the night back long enough for them to recognize their flaws.
Thank you.
And I'd like to read a poem that I recently wrote. It's about Chicago. It's called When Winter Comes, 2030. It is not fortuitous that we met under the dying sun, yet we rise every day to filled with nitrogen because someone must cover the blackened streets with a flurry of dandruff until winter arrives. This city once sprawled out like a virus, taking over the bodies of our planet instead of reaching up like a space elevator. Nobody asked, what's wrong with the sky? Lake Michigan is dead. Even in Chicago, a polite chill still fills us, and it satisfies our addiction to seasons, because if we invent it, it will come. But one addict doesn't deserve another, or at least that's what we learned as children, brushing away an invitation to glaze the windows with ice.
Wow. That just took my breath away, seriously. I grew up in Chicago, and thinking about 10 years from now, it's really, it's really something, because you think, well, 10 years from now, the virus won't be around, but what will we be dealing with then? What will be the virus of the day then? And this actually leads me into our more general discussion that I want to have with all the panelists, just about creativity and about how this isolation, how the pandemic, how the political situation has changed how you're being creative, not just in writing, but in other ways. I mean, for me, I feel like anytime I can be in flow in anything. I mean, I spent 2 hours today working on a light bright picture, or I'll take colored pencils and draw in this coloring book I have. And I feel like any hour I could spend just being in flow creatively in something is like this huge relief. So let me start with you, Reuben, and then let's open it up and have other people jump in too, about how is creativity, how are you looking at creativity now as opposed to, a year ago, and just what comes up for you with that?
It was very difficult during the lockdown for the months of March through probably about July. I did absolutely, I went absolutely nowhere. I stayed home. I was very afraid, and I found myself reading, which was quite a relief. I ended up losing my job as a result of the shutdown. So I found myself at home reading, and it was difficult to write. It was difficult to just even think about creating something new, mostly because I couldn't imagine us getting out of this situation. It was hard to believe that there would even be a reader in the future for us. And so it wasn't until toward the end of last year that I decided to slowly find ways to really express myself, and that happened in the form of drawing, uh, putting puzzles together, and then eventually I started taking walks. And I live right next to Lake Michigan, and so being outside really it felt like a renewal. And eventually I started being able to write again, and now I just keep a journal at my bedside, and I tend to have trouble sleeping, and it's something that never happened to me before. So I'm up at night, and what I do is I just write. I write in my notebook because I just have so much anxiety now about the future that being outside by myself and being up late at night taking notes is all I can do.
I've started taking walks alone after dark at like 8 o'clock at night because I can walk without my mask on. And, you know, there's a woods across the street from our house. And just anytime I can be outside without my mask on is this huge relief, you know, where I can just like forget for 20 minutes that, you know, I'm supposed to be wearing a mask. And I love that you keep a journal. And did you write that poem about Chicago in your journal, or was that, you know, did that kind of sneak up on you like that?
I wrote it. I wrote it in November. It was during Thanksgiving break. So I ended up toward the end of last year doing a lot of cooking, a lot of baking, and so while I was waiting for things to happen, I just started taking a lot of notes in my. This is the journal that I have. So I just just started writing things out, and I just couldn't imagine. I don't know. I mean, it's really nihilistic, but I just couldn't imagine a future. And so I kept thinking about what would Chicago look like if this kept going. And then it just came to me. This poem really just came to me almost in one sitting, which was remarkable. I've never done anything like that. And so it just came to me one night, very late one night while I was making a carrot cake.
It's funny how that happens. I know, Caroline, with your essay, you wrote that really quickly too. It just all came to you, right?
Mute myself. Yeah, the thing was that when the pandemic started, I was 3 days away from going on the first stop of my book tour, which was supposed to be in Texas in front of hundreds of librarians, and everything was canceled. And I couldn't write. I felt totally demoralized. So what I could do is I actually co-founded A Mighty Blaze with Jenna Blunt, because we decided, you know, we weren't going to let this happen. We were not going to let people say everything's canceled. So we started this thing, the two of us. Neither one of us had any idea what we were doing. And we figured, well, we'll put the word out and maybe people will like to come on and do a video or let us interview them. I thought we were going to get 2 people. We got like 200 in the first week. And all of a sudden, the media picked up on it, and we were partnered with the Authors Guild and Washington Post and the New York Times and all this other stuff. And we had to hire 23 people, all passionate volunteers, to help us. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I was working like 85 hours a day, just trying to keep up with stuff. And it was a blessing, because it's like what you said, when you're in the flow, you sort of you're not thinking, oh my God, people are dying, and oh my God, what's going on? Instead, I was thinking, I have to get this promo for this author up here, and I have to find out if I can interview this author and have this and this. So I was doing that all through the summer. And then when it hit September, I started to feel, wait a minute, this really isn't who I am. I'm not a business person or a corporation. I'm a writer. I need to like get back to this. And it was hard. It took a while. I had to take little steps in. And first it was a half hour, then it was an hour. I pulled back from the blaze a little bit, and now I'm writing 3 or 4 hours a day, and it's really helping.
Oh,
We try to,
you.
yeah, it's like, it's really, really helping. It shuts stuff out. because at first I was thinking, well, it's the pandemic. You have to write something about the pandemic or about politics. And then I thought, no, you really don't, because what you really want to do is create empathy. So people are feeling that they're not so alone. And so that's what I've been doing. And it's been really helping. And I knit 10 sweaters.
Oh,
I've been
nice.
doing that too.
Now, I know Jennifer Rosner, you were telling me you're doing puzzles. Are you doing that with your kids?
Yeah, actually, this is the one we'll do next, since we're bringing visuals in. But yeah, you know, everything you're saying, Reuben and Carolyn, sounds very familiar because first, I also have a notebook by my bed, which is new for me. And in the middle of the night, well, it's like I wake up and there's all this stuff scribbled on it. I don't even know. It's like I'm obviously up and then writing little notes. And with respect to walking, we started walking so much that our dog was like not wanting to come anymore. She was like, we've walked enough. Like she was like, let's not another walk. Which, so you know, it's a lot just to try to get out and get some breath of air. But what I found really interesting was how much the pandemic at the beginning, it just stopped me. I couldn't read or write. That was kind of the initial thing. Certain novels finally I got back into, and I think I'll always be grateful for those, novels, because it was just the thing that broke me back into reading, and I'm grateful for them. And then with respect to writing, I also remember saying, would it be okay if I just tried to write a sentence a day? And I was joking with a friend, like, would a word a day be okay? It's just really hard to get in. And I also had a book just come out March 3rd, and everything got canceled. And actually, I was on a mighty blaze. Thank you so much. And that was somewhat distracting, which I think was good. And everything shifted to Zoom. So it was this weird world of, instead of meeting readers in person, what we're doing here is, was talking online. And it has been also silver lining-ish, because you end up being able to be in touch with people that you really couldn't have. Like I was able to do a book club in New Zealand, and, my publisher wasn't going to be sending me there. So these are interesting things that have happened over the time. But at this point now, if I can just close out the political noise, I have been able to get some writing done, but tomorrow. Tomorrow's a big day,
oh my
right?
God.
Yeah.
Are we all taking tomorrow off and just like drinking champagne and Oh my gosh. I was so tired today, and I realized it was because I've been on high alert for 4 years, and suddenly it's like I'm just letting go. And okay, but we won't have a political discussion. So Sadia, how about you? Are you being creative in different ways?
Yes, I echo everything everyone is saying. I just gave up on books in the very beginning. It was like, let's watch films. So I got really into watching old films. Like I would watch anything, black and white films in different languages I didn't understand. It just really helped me to just see something moving on the screen. And then I did a lot of watercolor, really bad watercolor paintings. I would leave myself messages. My favorite is hanging above my writing desk, and if I can share. It's so cute.
Oh, yes.
It says, do the brave thing. And sometimes the brave thing was just not going outside or not just crying about it. And it's just nice to have remnants. I think I did that in like April or something, of like me doodling with this like tiny little watercolor set that I got myself.
Is that something new for you, the watercolors?
Yeah. Coloring, getting back into coloring was new for me. Yeah.
Caroline, you do watercolors, don't you? You sent me a thank you note once that had a watercolor.
I do. I found watercolors were really helpful. And also watching really short horror films were really helpful to me, because whatever you feel in a horror movie, it sort of makes you feel like, well, at least I'm not stuck in the basement with demons or whatever. And I still try to watch a horror movie a day, but movies are very, very helpful. You want to sort of get out of reality a little bit, I think.
Yeah, totally. So so I feel like since we are all involved with this book that's, celebrating and benefiting independent bookstores, we should give a shout out to our favorite independent bookstore. And for me, it's definitely Elliott Bay Books in Seattle and Powell's Book in Portland are my two favorite. How about for you guys?
Little City Books in Hoboken, New Jersey, and also Books Are Magic in Brooklyn.
I love that.
I have to jump in and say Skylark Bookshop. I love Alex so much. And I've been so grateful as a since it's a debut novel for me, I think I've learned a lot about the book business. And I've just found the embrace of booksellers to be so meaningful to me. And I feel like Pamela Klinger-Horn and Louisa Smith and the team at Skylark just have all been Mary O'Malley. I mean, so many people who have just kind of jumped out and been supportive of authors, including me. And I am so grateful for it.
And how about you, Reuben?
There are two bookstores that I absolutely love here in Chicago, Unabridged Bookstore in Lakeview and Pilsen Community Books in Pilsen.
Okay. Chicago has so many bookstores. My God, it's just incredible. And Sadia, how about you?
That would be, of course, Square Books, which is the engine of Oxford, Mississippi. And before I lived in Oakland, it would be Marcus Books, which is the oldest Black-owned bookstore in Oakland. Yeah.
Oh, neat. Okay, I do have an audience question from Marlene for Caroline. Caroline, would you be willing to write an essay that you imagine your sister might write about your sibling relationship? Well, that's interesting. Or would that be presumptuous?
Wow, that's a really interesting question, Marlene. And now I'm thinking maybe I should. That's I never thought about that, but that's actually a really good idea. So thank you for asking me about that. I think it would be a lot different than mine, but it might help me to understand the situation a little better. So thank you.
Maybe that's a book.
Yeah. Everything eventually is a book.
I know, right? Everything is. So if you have a question, audience members, you can post it in the chat section and we'll see it. And I think we've got about 10 minutes left. Is that right, Alex? So if you have a question, post it in there. Actually, Alex says we have a little more than 10 minutes. So I think we're ending at 1:15. And if you post a question, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this at the beginning. If you post a question, you'll be entered into a drawing and one person will win a book, will win a copy of Alone Together, and I'll sign it and I'll mail it to you, and you'll get something nice in the mail. So there's a little incentive to ask a question. So far, Marlene, you've won. You're the only one who's asked a question. But let's talk more about being in flow and about just how we're dealing with, taking care of ourselves creatively during the pandemic. And again, I mean, for me, it's definitely walks. And we got a puppy last November, which I'm so glad about because she just, it's like all about the puppy. And so I just feel like it's also about giving yourself permission to do something like, Sadia, you were saying, you're doing like bad watercolor. And, I have my light bright across the room for me. Otherwise I'd go get it. But it's like, it's super like no one wants to see it anyway. But it just feels so good to just let go of that judgment and just be bad at something. And so, like Reuben, you were saying you're also doing like puzzles and doing some drawing.
Yeah, at the end of last year, I started putting together puzzles. And they're very specific. They're 1,000-piece puzzles, and they're puzzles that are either images of Chicago or Chicago related. My partner is a Chicagoan, and so I'm trying to really like dig in. So So I do that a lot. I try to make some puzzles, but one of the things that I'm trying to make time for this year to really give something back to myself, to care for myself, is I try to do yoga about 3 or 4 times a week, and it's something that I started doing just occasionally a few years back when I was at a residency in Vermont. And so I do that now, and I found this great channel on YouTube, and I'm sure many people know it's Yoga with Adrian. Yes,
I've heard of that.
I love
Everyone loves
her.
that. Okay. No, so what's special about Adrian? Why does everyone, because you're like the fourth person who's told me about that yoga channel.
I'm not really sure how I found it, but what I really like about Adrian is she's very personable. The videos that she has range at different levels. Yes, she is everyone's best friend. I love it, and her dog Benji, absolutely.
Oh, she has a dog. Okay, I'm in. So we have a couple of questions. We have one from Karen. How do you feel the pandemic has transformed you, if at all? Does anyone want to address that?
I'll go. I would say that it has slowed me all the way down. I mean, I sleep earlier, I'm more tired, and so I listen to my body more. I can sense when I'm not, when my body feels, a little bit more off. I think this is the most time I've spent with myself, not trying to distract myself with like friends or like, doing, I love acts of service. So like doing things for people. And so I think it's also transformed me into like just being a better listener and like paying more attention to the people around me I got a kitten. Oh my God, what a wonderful opportunity to like remother myself, even just to like listen. When she wants to play, I play, and to think about like how many opportunities have I given myself to play. And so it's really been transformative for me in that sense. Yeah.
I love that, how the way that like your kitten gives you an opportunity to play. I feel the same way about my puppy. I'm just like, because they just love to play, and you're like, it gives you permission. I mean, I think for the first couple of months of the pandemic, I was so like in grief, and periodically, just during this past year, I feel like we've all been in grief, well, a lot of us. And so to have permission to just play, is really pretty cool. Okay, we're getting some more questions in. Yay. Danielle says, authors, what has become your favorite joy creatively? So should we just run through and each just say what our favorite, like my favorite joy is definitely walking in the woods at night.
Knitting.
I would say playing with Roxy.
Oops, sorry. I actually had to rent an office outside the house because my kids are home 24/7 and my husband's home 24/7, and I couldn't manage to get anything done. And so I get this big mug of tea and I walk into town, and I go to my office and I write a few hours, and then I come home, and it's been more productive than I think I wrote my novel at our dining table and cleared it up every night before, in order to serve dinner, etc. It was very, very transitional as in terms of having a writing space, and now I have a dedicated writing space. It's made a huge difference. But I think the walk in and that big cup of tea and just kind of, taking a little time separately in that way has been really helpful for me.
That sounds really lovely, actually. And Reuben?
Your talk of tea reminds me, every morning, early last year, I bought myself a stovetop espresso maker. So every morning, I love getting up every morning and making some espresso.
Yeah, and for $5, I got this little foamer, this mini milk foamer that makes my tea so awesome. And it's the best $5 I've ever spent. So
those are great. I've got one of those too.
Yeah.
Let's see. I missed one. Here's one from there's one way up here. Mary Beth says, other than Alone Together, what has been the most encouraging book for each of you during this time? Oh, that's a good question.
I was just going to say, I don't know if encouraging is the right word, but I was so moved by Hamnet, by Maggie O'Farrell, which has a lot of grief in it, but there's something so redemptive about the way in which actually creativity is used to, to how Hamlet came about, sort of in reaction to such grief. And that was very, very moving to me.
Oh, cool. Anyone else? I'm just looking at my bookshelf. I've been actually reading nonfiction, which I normally don't read, but I don't have the mind space for fiction during, I don't know why, during the pandemic, I've just been like on half speed. And so I've been reading lots of nonfiction about altruism and about different takes on sort of the, positive and negative of altruism and what that really means. And so for me, that's been, I think, interesting, just to focus on what is this idea and how can I look at it differently. Here's a question from, okay, here's one from Cam. Have you kept connected to your writers community for support, encouragement, and critiques during the pandemic? If so, how? If not, how have you sustained your writing? Oh, that's a good one.
Well, I have the Blaze. I have the Blaze. So we connect every single day. I'm Zooming or talking to Jenna like 5 times a day. I also know a lot of writers, and we're each other's water coolers. We're always like calling each other up or talking about writing or asking other writers to read our stuff. And it feels very different than before the pandemic, when you could just hang out at a cafe and hang out and laugh, but it's still something. And the fact that it's something is everything.
Yeah, I agree. I never, ever actually was someone who liked to write with other people at cafes. I like to meet and talk with people, but I never thought I would like Zoom write with anyone. But I've been getting up at like 6:30 every morning and Zoom writing with my friend Shayna, just to get me out of bed and like writing, even if, like you were saying, Jennifer, it's just like a sentence, and there's something about those connections that have become even more important to me. I got off of Facebook because it started feeling really too big. And so the connections that I think are more important to me are, the one-on-one. And for example, like now being with you guys is really just fills me up, it's really, really lovely. And, and seeing Alex and we can't be at a big festival with an audience and going out and, having a glass of wine together at night, but we have this thing that we share, this creativity and this, I think genuine love for, not just this book, but the whole writing process. It's really nice. So thank you all. Anyone else? Let me see. I think I had another question. Kathy. This is from Jennifer. Oh, for Jennifer Rosner, Kathy asks, have you talked to your brother about why he won't take advantage of your mom's cooking after all this time? What's wrong with the guy?
Yeah. So when I wrote that, which was back quite a while ago, my brother's family stayed with my mom for 6 months, and that was a lot. But yeah, they were panicky about the virus and didn't think she was careful enough. But the irony was that she wasn't leaving the house at all ever. And so she wasn't actually the risk, that they were scared of. I think it was just, it was just anxiety and some lack of grace, honestly, about kind of when you're staying in someone's house and they're, to just kind of join in. But I think it was, anxiety. And now they're back in New York and I think they're staying quite close to home, never really leaving too much right now because things are surging again around everywhere. But yeah, it was complicated and tricky. And everyone I think is dealing with how fraught things can be not, with the anxiety, but also with being kind of kept in a lot, and relationships are fraught, and everyone's like managing their, I think everyone's managing to try to be careful on their own terms, whatever that means to them. And they're trying to factor in their physical health, but they're also trying to factor in their mental health. And so people might take certain risks because they feel that it's really important for them just to be able, we're not just a body, but a mind, or we're, it's, we're many things, we're all things. And so we just, people are trying their best to take care, but I think they don't always line up. So even if 3 people are being safe, they may not be safe the exact same way. And one thing I thought was really interesting was someone had talked about this as, everything we do protective wise is like a piece of Swiss cheese we add to our sandwich. The mask is 1 piece of Swiss cheese, the 6 feet is 1 piece, and the, getting tested is 1 piece. And, you layer your Swiss cheese, but there are holes all over. But, the more layers, the more safe you are in some way. But it's just that other, different people, add different kinds of cheese, et cetera, so it's just kind of, I think it wasn't a lineup all the time of in view of, what would be the safest thing.
Well, I love that analogy of Swiss cheese, because that's so true. It's like, we don't know, like I had COVID for a month, and everyone in my house did. So supposedly now we're all immune or have antibodies, or I don't know, or magic or something for, X amount of days or weeks. And I'm just like, no one knows. No one knows. Oh, here's a really good question. That's a good one to end on. Stephanie asks, what is your favorite genre to read? And has that changed during the pandemic? Like for me, I'm reading nonfiction where I haven't read, that's not my usual go-to. How about the poets? Are you reading, well, that's a stupid question. I was about to say, are you reading other things than poetry?
I'm reading, I do read nonfiction. There is a book by The Undocumented Americans by Carla Villavicencio, which I really like. It's new, it came out last year. So I suppose that's prose that I do read, is mostly nonfiction.
That's on my list. So you're enjoying that?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's what I really like is how she humanizes day laborers. So she's really kind of demystifying, these stereotypes that people have about immigrants.
Oh, that's great. Okay, I'm going to push that one up my list. And how about you, Sadia?
So I am usually reading poetry and nonfiction. So I love essays and memoir, but I've been really reading lots of fiction, just lots and lots of fiction. I started reading Children of Blood and Bone with my niece. So it's like very, wow. I don't read a lot of like speculative fiction or like things like that. And so it was fun to do with her. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's see. I don't think we have any more questions. And I just want to look at you all again and thank you. And thank you so much for being part of the anthology and for being part of just, my community during the pandemic. I just really appreciate each of you. I'm just like looking at you all, thinking of how we connected in different ways. And like, Reuben and Sadia, I probably would never have met you if it weren't for this project. And so, it's been really nice to connect in different ways during the pandemic. I mean, yeah. And Alex, thank you again, wherever you are. There you are.
Here I am.
Thank you so much.
I'm like a little genie. I pop up.
You are like a genie.
So
Well, thank you all. This has been a wonderful, wonderful evening, a wonderful way to start the festival. I'm so grateful to each and every one of you. Thank you for all the wonderful questions. I'm going to just make a quick plug for talking about what you're reading, and Sadia, you mentioned essays. Mary Oliver, of course, is best known as a poet, but these essays in this particular book are stunningly good. The minute I finished it, I put it aside, but not too far away, because I knew that it was going to be a book that I was going to come back to again and again. And she talks about walking a lot and about noticing things. And I think that in this time, heaven knows we have enough time to notice whatever we want. So it's a wonderful book, and one that I would highly recommend.
What's the title? I didn't catch the
title.
title.
I'm sorry. It's called Upstream. And it's a beautiful, beautiful book, just as beautiful as her and as lovely as her poems. I'm also going to go away thinking about Swiss cheese now and masks. So thank you, Jennifer, for that. Profound metaphor. Well, thank you all. Thank you all for watching as well. I just want to remind you that on Thursday, so just 2 days away, heaven help us, we have our second event. It is with Lindsay Sproul and Michael Barakiva, and it's about queer narratives in YA fiction. It's going to be a fabulous, fabulous event. Really, really interesting. So I hope that you'll be able to join us then. Again, please do go to unboundbookfestival.com, look at the schedule, make some plans, most Tuesdays and Thursday nights until April the 23rd, when we have our keynote event, which is a small matter of 2 Pulitzer Prize winners, Tracy K. Smith and Jericho Brown. Jennifer, Jen, Reuben, Sadia, Caroline, thank you all so much. This has been a wonderful start to the festival.
Thank you.
Very grateful, and see you all soon. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
I hate to sign off.